Yeah, well, it could also be translated as life is a bumpy ride,
Yeah, yeah,
because it comes
Mm.
from the word what is the Sanskrit word? It's not dharma. It's dharma is duty. I forget. Whatever the heck it is. It basically is derived. The idea is a poorly formed axle hole. So in your cart, you've got the axle hole isn't properly formed. You're going to get a bumpy ride. So it's
It kind of reminds me of the Sufi. It may be general Islam as well, but I know it from the Sufis. The idea of the tariqat, that your life is a journey. There may be a goal if you can figure out what it is, but the point is to have the journey. I've always found that compelling, but I've always loved travel too, so it kind of works for my nature.
yeah. I mean the ancient sage Jerry Garcia put you may be going to hell in a bucket, but at least you're enjoying the ride.
yeah. At least let me enjoy the ride. Yeah. That was oh God, I can't remember the name of the album now. It was on the same one that Touch of Grey was on.
Yes, I believe it was. I
Was
believe
it
the title
In
of
the
the
Dark?
album was "Touch of Grey," or I don't know what it was. Yeah,
It was something like that. I could see the album cover in my head. I had that on cassette. That's,
thank
It
you,
raises
Samsara. Yes, indeed.
yeah,
That's
Samsara
where I was
is
trying.
the
Bumpy ride.
yeah, it's the word for the material world.
it raises some interesting suggestions, I suppose, how we in modern culture get as much of our philosophical notions, some of which we incorporate, some of which we reject, from music. Which wasn't, I mean, there were songs, there were bards, there were traveling minstrels, and so on and so forth. Music did spread back in the day, but there's no question, since we developed recording technology, it's become a big thing. And now there's, the music industry, which wasn't ever a thing before that, not in any significant way.
The Vedas were
Gone to shit.
songs. The Psalms were songs. The Song of Solomon is the Song of Solomon.
All right.
This isn't anything fucking unusual. Before there was writing, there was lyric poetry, and the lyric poetry was repetitive rhyme, musical, interlude, blah, 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 so you could remember the shit. I mean, it's not. I don't think human beings have changed all that much. What's changed about us is the scope of our responsibilities. That our minds and our traditions need to outgrow the parochial nature that they've had for years and years and years. Now that we are a global civilization, gotta change. Otherwise, we're doomed. We are.
That puts me in mind.
We will fucking kill ourselves.
Oh yes, we're very, very bad at that on a cultural level. But not all the traditions missed out on that. I forget which culture it's from, but there's this idea of the 7 generations, both before us and behind us, that every significant action we take in life, we should consider the 7 generations. What will come, what we do have an impact on those who follow us, and will it bring honor to those who preceded us? I wish I could remember where it's from, though. But
It sounds very Chinese.
Could be. It could be a First Nations thing.
Honoring the ancestors and living in a way to set up for a better future.
Mm-hmm. I find that it's not practical in the day-to-day life sense, but it's practical in the long-term philosophy sense. You know, like that old saying that the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, but the second best time is today.
Yeah. And that's,
Yeah.
dude, I'm definitely dealing with a lot of that right now. In some of my online circles that I run in where, people are complaining about this and that, like, oh, I can't find a partner. Oh, like they're in this community, it's all guys, there's not enough women, da 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 da. And it's like, well, you, you know, you thirsty incels are chasing all the women off by acting like jerks, so what do you expect? And people's like sense of entitlement, it's like, hey, why can't we all just come together and support each other? Because out in the real world, we're all hated enough. So like, let's just come together and be people and stop thinking about me, what's in it for me. Let's,
Mm.
like, take the time to lift each other up and help each other out, because we all have it hard enough. You know, we don't need to be making things worse for each other.
That reminds me of another thing that is from Eastern wisdom. It's a concept of heaven and hell. Um, in hell, a group of people sit at a table, and there's all the food they could possibly want, but the chopsticks that they're given are 6 feet long. And so they all struggle and strive and try to eat, and no one can eat, despite the fact there's abundant food. No one can eat. In heaven, it's exactly the same setup, except they use their long chopsticks to feed each other. I've always enjoyed that because it makes it pretty clear that when we struggle and strive to screw over each other and get slightly ahead, it's bad news for everybody. But if we just fucking help each other, then, rising tide lifts all boats, as they say.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of wisdom floating around in some of the older traditions. And we do get a little bit of the telescoping effect. Like, everything from more than a few hundred years ago is just the ancient past, when some of it is only a few hundred years old and some of it is several thousand years old. I don't know that it really makes much difference, much like it doesn't matter which scientist came up with the law of temperature and pressure, Boyle's law, or which scientist came up with the laws of thermodynamics, which was Newton. It doesn't matter who came up with them. They're there now. We have access to that knowledge now. So similarly, it doesn't matter if a piece of wisdom is from 1,000 years ago or 10,000 years ago. If it's valid wisdom, it's valid.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the annoying things, like with like Frank or James Tour, where he's like, oh, origin of life research isn't going anywhere, we should just put an end to it. And it's like, no, we had to stand on somebody else's shoulders to get where we are now. And
Mm-hmm.
we're still climbing onto to somebody's shoulders, and then we're going to take it this much further, and then the next generation is going to climb up on top of our shoulders, and it's just a ongoing thing. It just,
Yeah. It's such a strange thing for a scientist to say. We haven't made much progress, so let's just give it up. Let's pack it up and go home. We do still see that. Tour is obnoxious about it because he lets his religious bias show. He's terrified of results in that field because apparently to him, the linchpin of Christianity is needing that God of the gaps for abiogenesis. He has to have that miracle of the divine finger reaching down and creating life, or his whole faith is in vain. Whatever. He's got a weak and fragile faith. But other scientists do similar things. Like there's a number of physicists who have a big problem with psychology because, psychology has had just as long as physics to mature, and it's poorly understood still. Many of our concepts are very vague, ill-defined. It's hard to get good, repeatable experiments because every freaking human is different. So how do you possibly control for that? So it's slow going. And so a lot of scientists say, this is nonsense. It's a soft science. It's quackery. We should just pack it up. But why, though? If we give it up, we learn nothing. Maybe it's not going as fast as physics. Maybe it's not going as fast as material science, but we're getting valuable insights. For example, we've already learned that it's much more beneficial across broad populations to treat addiction with therapy rather than forced religion, for example.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And well, and that's the thing with psychology, and like the difference between like physics and psychology is like physics is like empirical and measurable and all these things. Psychology, for it to have that level of concrete, you know, um, that level of concrete evidence, we would actually have to be able to see someone else's thoughts.
It's pretty
And
tricky.
yeah,
It's
and so we have to rely on like self-reporting and things. So there's always going to be like those stumbling blocks in psychology. But if you take it from like I'm going to learn about different things from psychology and the things that kind of speak to me, or like I've learned about CPTSD, and it's like, hey, hey, yeah, there's something there.
Yeah.
So
Another big one is autism, right? Like
yeah.
growing up, nobody had any idea what that was. There were gifted kids, there were special needs kids, and we did use the term special needs back then, and normal kids, and that was it. And I was one of those kids who was somehow on both ends of the spectrum at the same time. I was just not a normal kid, and that's all there was. And then, later on, all my kids are somewhere on the spectrum. My youngest is closest to normal, manages to fit in, have normal friends, and so on and so forth. My oldest is, I guess, balanced would be a way to put it. Like able to have friends and interact normally, but also has that high, if you're familiar with spoon theory, that high spoon cost for social interactions and a difficult time forming strong friendships. Possible, but hard. But my son is further over that way on the spectrum. And so as he was growing up, he was, nonverbal for a while. Because of advances in psychology, we were able to put him in a program that he actually started to learn sign language in order to communicate his thoughts, and that spurred him on into, language is useful. And that was the whole hang up, is to his, toddler mind, he just didn't see any value in language, so why bother? But once he was shown that the ability to communicate is useful, then he learned it. And watching him go through these various stages and processes and how things are different for him, it was weird for me, because a lot of the ways things were different for him is exactly how they were different for me. And that made me look back on my own childhood and go, because our knowledge had advanced. We didn't know now, or we didn't know then what we know now. And in some ways it's unfortunate. My childhood probably would have been a lot better, but now my kids' childhood, especially my son's, is better because of what we've learned since, even though it's a soft science,
But that just goes right back to what we were talking about earlier, where it's like, yeah, hey, here's this situation that sucks for me, but I can do my part to make it not suck as much for the next generation, or
Mm-hmm.
help somebody else. I might not be able to help myself, but my experience might help somebody else.
Yeah. And we have another friend. It's Robin.
Hey,
Or,
Rob.
Hello.
hello.
Hey,
How's the
I
milk
wanted to.
business?
It's good. You need to start hauling milk. That's what you need to do.
I actually did look into that. Unfortunately, there's no dedicated milk haulers around the area. There are
Oh,
dairies, but they all come in from out of state to do the actual transport. I'm like, why though?
yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, we got you.
Okay. I wanted to push back on your use of normal, Ember. I know, come on your own show and push back on you, but normal, what is normal?
Yeah,
You know,
that's a valid. That's very valid. I still don't know what normal means myself. That was just
I know.
a gap in language. I don't have a better word to put there. Neurotypical, I suppose.
But
And that's
I think we need to be out. I think we need to recognize how far we have come though in psychology. I mean, we're not. Most of us don't do exorcisms on people anymore. There's a few, Greg Locke, nuts like that, but most of us have figured out the brain enough to know that there's better things to do than look for demons. Um, we've got
Mhm.
medications. We understand, like you said, autism and are starting to diagnose that. We can just so many. I mean, the advancements that we have learned in the human brain are amazing. They just are not as funded as well as the star searches,
Mhm.
because there's still a whole lot of people in this country and the part of the world too, but in our country that think that that don't even halfway accept mental illness. They think it's
Mhm.
free will. No, it's not mental illness; it's free will. But they have free will, so
It's free when it's not demons, and that's
yeah.
unfortunate too. Like
Yeah, it's either demons or it's their free will. That for them to accept that somebody has mental illness means that they've got to accept that somebody don't have free will. Actually, so that's why I think that's why they have a whole lot of trouble with that. Is because if you have a mental illness that affects your ability to determine right and wrong, then how did you have free will to begin with? So that was just my thoughts on it. I just wanted to come on and say that.
yeah, for sure. And the funding is a really, really good point too, because science progress takes money. Just like, building a hospital, you have to pay to put up the infrastructure, and the higher you want that building to go, the more it's going to cost. You have to put the money into it to get the results out of it. And
Hmm.
here we are in a country where, not to belabor anyone's favorite, or belabor's the wrong word, not to besmirch anyone's favorite entertainments, but well, in high school, I was on the science Olympiad team, and we destroyed in regionals. We took like more than half of the gold medals, and we were on our way to states. And hooray, we're going to states. Except we had to come up with the money for our own busing.
No.
Meanwhile, the football team was budgeted, and this was in the 90s, so bear that in mind, inflation and whatnot. But at the time, the football team was budgeted $1 million a year for their busing to and from other schools for competitions. And our football team was not very good. They lost a lot. So we have like this not even winning team with a huge budget for transportation. And then we have this other team in this thing that's actually relevant to academics that we're dominating in, but we can't go unless we pay for our own bus. Why are we
We've
like
actually
this?
shown our kids where our priorities lie, with that right
Mhm.
there. I mean, why
I
would kids go into science and math if you know, they're they're more popular, they can make more money playing sports?
and Ember, I can definitely relate to that as a band geek because I was in like marching band and stuff in high school,
Mhm.
and we had to go out to every football game and every basketball game and play, for pep band and marching band and all that. And then they started talking about cutting the music program altogether to increase the funding for the sports teams. And we're like, really? I, like,
Mm.
and we're talking about rural Indiana here, so
Mhm.
like the town I grew up in was like 1,200 people. So rural Indiana, they're like, oh, we got it. Our football team is they need new jerseys. you know, we got to find some funding somewhere. Maybe we should cut the music program. And we're like, we're forced to go out to every single game and play to support these sports teams, and you're going to cut our music program.
Yeah, what are the sports teams supposed to do without their musical accompaniment? How can they possibly play without someone else playing? It reminds me of the cheerleaders. It was an interesting time to be a cheerleader when I was in school because, as is often the case, it was considered a female only extracurricular, but there were males who wanted to be cheerleaders, and so there was discussion. Do we let males on the female cheerleading squad, or do we form a male cheerleading squad? Oh, the scandal. Eventually they did let males on, and now it's standard practice. About half of the squad is males, but all the cheerleaders, not all, there were like 2 or 3, but the vast majority of cheerleaders absolutely hated having to go to every football game, every basketball game, every wrestling match, and cheer, because that's not what they were there to do. They were there to do the cheerleader things for the cheerleading competitions. They wanted to do their own sport, not just rah someone else's sport.
Yeah, my sister had it doubly bad because she was a cheerleader and in band, so she would be on the sidelines cheerleading, and then we'd do our band stuff, and she'd have to run up and play music in her freaking cheerleading uniform. It was hilarious.
Hey, Ember, we lost a minute ago. We lost everybody for a second. So I'm gonna get off here. Maybe pulling on too much or something. I just wanted to come on and say that. Just come in, give you some correction.
Sure.
But I don't know where you live. If you like, I'll message you on Discord or something. I may know somebody, a milk company or something up there. If I knew where you were, but I don't want you to dox yourself. So,
Alrighty.
all right.
Yeah. Cool beans.
Bye, Stephanie.
There we
I
go.
don't know where she went.
Bye.
I see her. All right, bye.
Yeah, I was searching for a video I did apparently quite a long time ago on when Sabine Hassenfelder came out with her little thing about why we should all be very skeptical about treatment for transgender kids specifically. And why we should all be very, very skeptical of that, because it wasn't good science.
Yeah, I remember that.
It wasn't good science from Sabine's perspective, because to a physicist, good science must be a double-blind experiment. Wherein the participants don't know where they are. It's simply data. It's reviewable data, and I was trying to find from that video. I was trying to find an essay in the New England Journal of Medicine that points out why you can't do that in medicine. It's unethical.
Yeah. As soon as you started talking about that, I can't remember the study, but there was a psychologist who had a stutter, and he formed this experiment and went to like this orphanage, and like his nurse or whatever, his assistant, would talk to these kids, and like they took one group of kids and they were like, oh, you shouldn't talk at all, you have a speaking problem, and and basically convinced them that they had a stutter when they didn't, and then they developed a stutter. And then this other group of kids, they told them, oh, you should speak up more, you speak really well, and and it was just like, when you listen to the specifics of this, it's like, holy crap, this is so unethical, because you are doing severe psychological damage to these kids. There's no way to like test those things, because you're going to be damaging one group of kids. You know, it's just, you can't
And
form.
there's the study. It's a paper. It's not a study. It's a paper that was published ages ago, quite a long time ago, 1991, in the New England Journal of Medicine. It explains from a medical ethics standpoint why the standard for valid clinical studies can't be as rigorous and absolute as to all of that. For instance, if you have a method of treatment that significantly improves the quality of life of a category of patients, studying whether it's an effective method of treatment by withholding that clearly effective method of treatment from one group while providing it to another is fucking immoral.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's
it's like, you know, and people have accused me of being a complete asshole by using the broken arm, by using a broken arm metaphor. It's like, well, we have two people with a busted arm. We're going to put one in a sling and immobilize it, and we're going to just let the other one just walk around and see which way it comes out better. And that seems to be what a lot of people want with regard to a lot of things, particularly within areas of psychology and that sort of thing. It is absolutely, without a doubt, demonstrable that compassionate care for trans youth yields better results for the kid going throughout all of this stuff. Now, it may horrify other people, but for the child, for the individual involved, for people who are insistent, persistent, consistent, and they ain't desisting in their view of their gender identity, and they go through this time, and it's not many people. It's just a tiny number of people that they're actually there. It's an actual indication of how good the diagnostics are, that there are so few that are offered the treatments that we're talking about, the treatments that people decry. But for those people, it matters, and it's you know, it yields positive results. And time after time after time, I will either get it from a theistic standpoint, well, God made Adam and Eve and blah 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 blah, or I'll get it from an atheistic standpoint, where it's, well, you know, it's not logical and blah 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 blah. It's, but you're not looking at the people. You're basically saying those people do not exist, when the plain fact of the matter is that they do. One of them's talking to you now. Do you have any idea how difficult it is to talk to someone who basically looks you straight in the eye and says, you're not real? Do you understand that that is the absolute reflection of 70 years of my life on this planet? It's incredibly difficult when I see people debate these things, and the part of the reason this came to mind again was that Jefferson Spatchcock did a review of Darth Dawkins and I don't know what, Tom Rabbit laughing all over the place about Matt Dillahunty walking out of the debate with Andrew, and it's, you know, it's the same old shit. It's just, you know, folks, you demand, on the one hand, you demand something that's impossible that you wouldn't ask when it comes to the discussion of anything else in the medical profession. You just wouldn't. But you will ask that of around these issues because you find them icky. And you just won't let people alone. And you basically say, well, we need more study. The more progressive among these people will say, well, we need more study. But at the same time, they want to stop the studies. So how do you get the data? We need more data. There's insufficient data. We need more data. But we're going to forbid this method of treatment so that the data can be developed. Either way, we lose.
And the sad thing is people are taking advantage of the normal human instinct of the fear of the unknown is what it boils down to. Your typical cis-het person has no reason to wrap their mind around this in like day-to-day life. They don't have any there's no incentive for them to think about these things and consider them. So it's an unknown to them, and people fear the unknown. They fear what they don't understand. And so then you have these bad actors like these religious people and Matt Walsh and all these other people that use that to their advantage, for political gain or for social gain or for monetary gain, whatever it is. And they just reiterate the ignorance and reinforce these things and put, false information out there. Like,
they manufacture more ignorance.
Yeah, they want to mutilate kids. They want to, they want to pump kids full of hormones and this and that. It's like, no. I actually had somebody, this younger kid that I work with, try and say that stuff to me, and I'm like, dude, first of all, no. The only thing that's available to anyone under age 18 is puberty blockers, which are proven to be safe. They use it for treating cancer in kids. It doesn't do any harm whatsoever. They can come off of them at a certain point in time, and if they decide they don't want to transition, they'll go right into puberty like normal, and it's like it never happened. I was like, and not only that, I have a friend who has a trans kid, and when they came out to their parent and said, I'm trans, he was like, okay, cool. And they started social transitioning, and their kid is happier than ever. And I said, and I told this younger kid that I was working with, I was like, I've got this friend, and this is the situation with their kid, and their kid is happier than ever. It's like, and all they're doing is just acknowledging that that's where they are as a human being. And he was like, oh,
there's to be, just to be entirely accurate, puberty GnRH agonists aren't usually used for much more than 2 years. There are complications if you do use them for more than 2 years. What they do is they just simply delay. They're not usually used until tender stage 2, and they're a timeout, just a timeout to see if, in fact, they're not prescribed to people who do not exhibit that insistent, persistent, consistent affiliation with their gender identity. Insistent, persistent, consistent identification. This is part of the protocol. Yes, I am. I'll come back. All right. And so, after that time, some kids will say, will make that reevaluation as they sort of go. Most of the kids and this is another statistic that is often cited. Well, most of them go on to be given cross-sex hormones. Well, that's because the diagnostics are that good. That's because they've figured it out. That these kids, it is probably more likely that if these kids are more insistent, persistent, and consistent with their gender identity, they're going to want to continue along a development pathway that is consistent with their gender identity in terms of their developing physicality. That's the way it's going to work out. So, yes, cross-sex hormones are prescribed, not below the age of 16. At least not in most areas, because that's where a degree of competency is there, and that degree, that level of determination in law has always been based around, well, when do you allow access to birth control for teenagers?
Yeah, which is also hormones.
Is also hormones. It's the same basic, it's within the same framework.
Yeah.
So if you're discussing that stuff, it's not, it's always going to be a gotcha. Oh, yes, they do. Here's a case of this person, blah, blah, blah. And somebody will bring up Jazz Jennings. And it's like, well, Jazz Jennings was a rather unusual case. What isn't generally available are surgical procedures. That's not generally available, and that's mostly because the surgeons involved don't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole for liability reasons. It's a major it's major surgery. But then you can also go into you can look at the Utah law, for example, which banned gender affirming surgeries for trans kids, but carved out an exception for cis kids. Mm-hmm. As far as breast augmentation is concerned, it's the same kind of thing. It's like, well, if either breast augmentation or reduction is perfectly acceptable for cis kids, but not for trans kids.
Stephanie, which state was it? Was it Utah? It was one of those that are out west. They put a law in place to ban gender affirming care, but voted to retain the child marriage law for children as young as 11 years old.
Yeah, it's Tennessee, I believe.
It was what, and it was like, and they're like, we're trying to protect the children. It's like,
yeah,
except from actual predators.
Yeah. It's like, what
that's one of the easy ways to catch them in. Remember what we frequently say, mind what people do, not what they say, because their deeds will betray their lies. And child marriage is legal in 43 states. 7 of them have no minimum age.
Yeah.
Protect the children.
Yeah. It's just and this is something that was actually going through my brain earlier today, because my friend I was just talking about sent me a message on Facebook Messenger. It was really funny. But I was sitting there thinking about just how ignorant everybody is to like biology, and like my mind got onto the whole Matt Walsh, what is a woman thing that he was doing. And it's like, how many of these people would just have their mind blown if they found out that, hey, just because you have a penis and testicles doesn't mean you have a Y chromosome. You might have XX. I might have XX chromosomes because I have a daughter. I don't know if I carry a Y chromosome or not.
Yeah, similarly, there's a non-zero chance that I'm an XX myself with an SRY mutation. I haven't actually looked into it because I'm not sure I want the answer to that one, being that I'm already in a very unusual state with mentally with transition stuff myself. But if that were true, then the fact I have a son doesn't prove anything because he could just have the same mutation, you know?
Yeah, and it's like people just don't realize that, you know, how you how your body develops and how you present, whether it's masculine or feminine, has more to do with just hormones when you're a fetus than what your biology is, what your gametes are, what your chromosomes are. None of that stuff really matters. What matters are what hormone washes you get when you're a fetus.
Yeah, it's what determines what the gametes turn into.
Yeah, and that doesn't even always work out. Biology is messy.
Oh, yes. Well, it's all that chemistry. And chemistry, as Andy Weir puts it, is a sloppy bitch.
I mean, it's just
So apparently, Ben Shapiro and Matt Walsh and all those guys have decided that they'd get a little bit, they'd just get into a little bit of a drag show of their own, hey kids, let's put together a movie, and they couldn't find anybody who'd be willing to act in their movie, so they made this film called Lady Ballers. And apparently I haven't seen this yet, but I think it wasn't H. Bomber guy in his most recent video, but it might have been. He mentioned that Ben Shapiro was in some interview somewhere, and he said, well, we would have preferred to have other people do the thing, and we tried to get a sports team to participate, but they don't let guys do what we said the guys would do. In other words, he basically said, this isn't real, and we made the whole thing up. And it's like, no, that's not the way sports works. It's people, all the regulations around allowing trans people to participate in sport are quite strict. It's like you don't just go, hey, I feel like a girl today, I want to play on the girls' sports team. That's not how it works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's so much stupid involved. I've thought about getting a pirate copy so I could review it because, yeah. But on the flip side, they outright said when they were releasing it that the entire point is to make the most triggering movie ever, and I'm like, I don't really want to give them any attention either. So I don't know.
Stupid. I'll tell you this, as far as Ben Shapiro goes, his discussion with Alex O'Connor was the thing that really cemented for me just how fake he is. Because when he's on the line, or on what the hell is
his show?
Whatever their stupid show is, their channel or whatever it is. When he's on there, boy, he's just spewing shit out. But when he's got to go sit across the table from Alex O'Connor, all of a sudden he's prim and proper and polite and congenial and all these things. It's like, you fake ass prick. You are so
he's
fake,
super two-faced.
Dude. Yeah, he just like the completely different side, just a completely different person. It's like, if you were like that all the time, you could actually be a good person, but you're not.
Oh, he could be a good person, but he wants money more.
Yeah.
It's sort of the divide, like many of us could do not exactly what Ben does, definitely what Matt Walsh does, But when you get to like the peak of intellect, you've got many idiosyncrasies. Like, look at the difference between Neil deGrasse Tyson and Lawrence Krauss. The way they present things, very different. Idiosyncrasies everywhere. But we could definitely work in the same field as Ben. I mean, most of us here on the skeptic side of YouTube could absolutely be Daily Wire correspondents, if not Fox News correspondents, if we were willing to lie for money. Sometimes I feel like we're the dumb ones for not doing that. But I don't know. I couldn't look my kids in the face after having, done that.
Yeah, there's the burden of integrity.
It's weird, in a way, that the people who are constantly going, oh, the morals are written on your hearts, are the ones most willing to chuck the morals out the window.
Yeah, well, when you've got an absolute framework that's as flexible as religious morals, it's kind of like, well, God's telling me I should behave this way. It's like, no, that's not God. That's you.
My goodness, it's so bad. It's like that verse J. Warner Wallace had in the show earlier, that he cited it as attempting to be proof of the expanding universe. And, just before the show, I listened to a flat earther cite it as proof of the flat stationary geocentric earth and the solid firmament. Same verse. Like, none of this means anything. You're all just making shit up to apply to these existing verses. It's ridiculous.
I had to help a family member with that when they were like deconverting and deconstructing, and they came to me and they're like, man, there's all this weird shit in the Bible. I'm like, yeah, there's a lot of weird shit in the Bible. Like, yeah. They're like, if you read the Bible, it talks about the world like it's flat. And it's like, yeah, because they didn't know what the fuck they were talking about.
Yeah, they were telling a story. I mean, hey, and they didn't know, and they were trying to make up stuff, and they made up stuff, and it was great. Just don't worry about it. I mean, it's and when it comes to I had a really wonderful brief conversation with David Fitzgerald about the whole myth, Jesus myth thing, and my first question was, does it matter? And he said, no, it doesn't. Really, the myth itself has taken over from the real guy, and did so a long time ago. If there was a real guy, it doesn't really fucking matter. Yeah. Assuming there was, even if there was or wasn't, it doesn't matter, because what we're dealing with is the aftermath of what people came to believe about this personage, whether the personage was entirely fictive or based on a true story. It doesn't matter, because what we're dealing with is the story that some people accept as true. And while it is true that if you can demolish the myth, if you can either say a person did meeting all of the criteria around the figure of Jesus, the mythological figure of Jesus, ever existed, it wouldn't matter to the people that believe in the myth. It just wouldn't. They'd always say that. It's like I think it's a vain hope to think that people are going to abandon their faith, because in essence they're believing in something that can't be true. The notion of all of those things that figure in theory did can't be true.
Yeah, a lot of people
Teenagers
get hung up on things.
teenagers don't give birth to kids unless they've had a little bit of the hanky panky going on. That's not the way it works. The Holy Ghost, it doesn't. Holy Ghost may be a Randy sort of person, but or a personage. One in three, I guess. Poor God the Father and God the Son, I don't think they got any, but the Holy Ghost seemed to get plenty.
Unless we have
not
an
enough.
Not as much as Zeus, though.
Yeah.
Unless we have an extremely rare and bizarre case of parthenogenesis, I don't think that's how things happen.
Not normally. Weirdly, it's one of those situations where you could posit some really off the wall explanation, like maybe time traveling aliens took sperm from the future and made up this whole thing about angels and did artificial insemination and yada yada. And as ridiculous as that is, it's still more plausible than a fucking magic ghost being. The fuck? Because it's very, very unlikely, but it's all within the realm of naturalistic possibility. It doesn't require magic.
Anagrams from the Anunnaki. Sorry, that's a very obscure reference.
I'm broadly familiar with the Anunnaki.
Well,
I used to listen to Coast AM. I catch Toast to Toast on Paulogia when I can. And also there's a fairly new channel called the Y-Files that's been covering a lot of those, partly ancient, partly newer things, whatever. But yeah, they just hit 3 million subscribers, and I enjoy the hell out of that show. So that's good stuff too.
I used to be in this heavy metal band, and the singer was like obsessed with the Zachariah Sitchin's stuff, and we had a song called Anagrams from the Anunnaki. So that's I dropped it in chat a couple times just to make myself laugh whenever they get brought up.
Yeah.
Hey, I got to work in the morning, so I'm gonna have to hop off of here, man.
Alrighty. Well, always good to chat with you.
Yeah, it's great to chat with you. It was a great discussion tonight. Good to see you, Stephanie.
Good to see you.
Yeah, take her easy. Yeah, we'll see you all around.
Alrighty. Laters.
Later.
Yeah. Lots of adventures. We've covered a few pretty big topics, actually. I was thinking earlier when you were talking about talking to people who deny that people like you exist right to your face when you're right there. It made me flash back to that Pastor John thing earlier, how he was talking about how people denied Jesus right to his face. And I'm like, that's ironic as hell, because he will bring up stuff like that, and he's one of the same people who will deny the legitimacy of an actual human being standing in front of him. Like, why? I mean, we know why, because his faith won't allow him to believe anything outside of his little box, but it's still just... I worry about humanity sometimes.
Oh, all the time. It's kind of... Oh, yeah.
Damn it, Beamsy.
Yeah. I don't know. Forgive us. We should have asked permission. It's true.
It is. It's only polite.
Yeah. Do not plagiarize Beamsy's penis tails.
Beamsy's penis has tails? Holy crap.
Well,
they speak legends of the great Leviathan. They even wrote books about it, apparently.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know either. I'm just kind of winging it. It's an adventure.
Yeah. It's the 5th of December.
It is.
Goodness.
I know we're a month past the Guy Fawkes Day. We're 20 days from the obligatory capitalistic winter celebration. Although I do actually like Christmas. I don't like the religious implications of it, but I love the idea of a festival of lights in the middle of frickin' winter. It's like the best thing to do with a winter, in my humble opinion.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I was talking on, we were talking about atheist Christmas traditions, and Purple Rhymes with Orange was on Women Atheists Unload last Saturday, and we were talking about all sorts of things, and festivals of lights and things that I enjoyed. I used to really enjoy caroling, just going around and doing the caroling thing in Boston and all that wassailing thing.
Yeah, I actually really enjoy. There's a festival near where I live called Dickens Festival, and it's well, it's mostly people in Victorian cosplay doing Christmas carols, but they do other stuff too. Like there's one person who does spooky Christmas stories kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, actually, I found one. I will, because I recorded it as a demonstration of the VR stuff that I came up with a couple of years ago. So once I click through all the buttons and add it to the stage and bigify it. Well, let's see. Yeah. The first part is just a still photo. The scene. This is an actor playing Ebenezer Scrooge, and he's bah humbugging and handing out pink slips. They're actually coupons for an area business, which is kind of cute. But they get pretty decent crowds. Here's a couple other characters. This is I forget her character name, but she's my friend Fran from the Renaissance Fair, and that's her husband Brett. And they run a business at the Renaissance Fair, but at the festival, she hands out roasted chestnuts to passersby. That's what she's up to. And Brett plays a character named Barry M. Deep, who's the local undertaker, which, with Tiny Tim about to die and all that, it comes up. It's pretty neat. It's supposed to be playing. I was just trying to kill time until we got there. Okay, here's shoot, he's playing a famous author, but I forget which author it is. But they do a big old sing-along at this gazebo at in the middle of the day, and there's much bigger crowds for that. Washington Irving, that's who he plays. And he talks a little bit about how they used to tell spooky stories around Christmas. That's how Dickens wrote A Christmas Carol, is because it was part of the tradition to tell the spooky stories. And then he goes on to tell the legend of Sleepy Hollow, and it's pretty neat.
Everyone, I think, probably knows a Sleepy Hollow, right? Now, storytelling at Christmas, especially ghost stories, might seem like a weird thing to do.
The wind and the traffic were a little rough.
There'll be tales of past glories and scary ghost stories from Christmases long, long ago, right? Have you ever wondered why that line is in there? Well, Queen Victoria did a lot of things that we all still do today. She set the trend. The reason that we wear black at funerals, that's because Queen Victoria did it with the whole family. We all did it ever since. The reason you wear a white dress on your wedding day, that's Queen Victoria again. And the reason we celebrate Christmas
right up against the lake
is because of Victoria and Albert. You see, he came from the middle of Europe. And when he married Victoria, they brought a lot of different traditions together under one roof. They were the first people who all as one put up a tree and decorated, gave out presents, did Christmas cards, caroling, big feasts, acts of charity, the Yule log. All of this was the trends that they set. Now, they didn't invent these things. They came from all over. But they brought them all together as one celebration that we now call Christmas, right? But one thing they did that we don't do anymore is tell ghost stories. You see, all those different cultures that made all those different things, they all did have one thing in common that they all did in the wintertime. They told ghost stories. Because when it's closest to the solstice, when it's dark, when the night is long, the days are short, every culture believed that that's when the spirit world and our world would come together, be at their closest. And so they used to tell stories like that. And those stories were told at Christmas time because it's in the middle of winter. And we stop because now we get our stories different ways. We see them on little things we hold in our hands. We have a special room where we set the thing up to tell us our stories. We go to buildings where they shoot the stories up onto the side of a wall. But before all that...
Or we put on a VR helmet and re-experience our stories that we couldn't necessarily be there for in the first place. It happens. This video's 26 minutes long, but it's my video, so anybody who wants to view it can. I'll put the link in the description. It works on computers as well. I'm displaying it on my computer. You can scroll around, look around the area if you want to, or just watch Washington Irving do his thing, if you are so inclined to hear the story of Sleepy Hollow. But yeah, it's just, yeah, the point there for that whole thing is we don't tell ghost stories like we used to, but also the whole festival, it's mostly carols, despite the part 2 is the daily everybody gets together and sings Christmas carols thing. I'll actually see if I can find that while we're chatting, but it's just a really neat festival, even though I'm not at all into Christian stuff. Just the whole... Here we go. Whoops. I broke it. I broke it. I went to change it to that tab and I lost the tab. This is what happens. Okay. Bigify.
Who knows?
And add it to the screen. Okay. Yeah, this is the part 2. Yeah. Oh, actually, I'll go to the end on this one because they do 12 Days of Christmas, which is pretty outrageous, but it also kind of really shows up the benefits of recording stuff in VR because you can look all the way around, not just...
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not what we practice! Sorry.
That one's really fun.
Or
They get the whole crowd involved. Yeah. So I'll put the link for that one too in case anybody wants to enjoy all the various Christmas songs, what have you. There's times when I just want Christmas carols, and they do this every weekend in December in the village of Skinny Atlas on one of the Finger Lakes here in New York. But even though I'm fairly close by, I can't always go. And, you know, I try to go at least once or twice a year, but you never know, you know? So it's nice to have recordings of that kind of thing, even for myself who's actually been there.
Lake Skaneateles, the birthplace of the Lightning.
The Lightning.
Lightning sailboat. Mm-hmm. Born in the 30s.
I did
Class
not know
is still
that.
going strong. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Atheist Carpenter says, I just realized why Doctor Who Christmas specials are so popular. Is it because of the carols? I think it's because of the carols. I don't know. It's
Have you been watching the Doctor Who specials?
Sadly not for a few years. I haven't really. Oh shit! It has been a while. I haven't been able to watch regular television since like 2011. I did manage to keep up with Doctor Who for a season or two because of Netflix, but then they took it off of Netflix, and I realize it's on BritBox or whatever streaming service, but I don't have either time or money to get all the streaming services, so I'm just out of date.
Yeah, well, I was able to procure a 1 month, just through the month, so I could see David Tennant reprise his role as the Doctor in the 3 specials this year, and they're all very good.
I can
the 2
imagine.
that I've seen, the third one's coming up, but
yeah, I'm hoping that I'll be able to catch some of them. Maybe someday I'll be able to retire, and then I cannot describe how it felt when I grew up. Doctor Who was one of my father's favorite things, and that was old Who when they had the long story arcs over several episodes and whatnot. But it was still kind of cool, like the way it made you think about time and space, particularly as a child. It really influenced my interest in science and physics and such. There was one episode I recall where the TARDIS materialized inside the TARDIS. And I was like, how the hell? So it was very interesting. And then after I started driving, I was going to do a team job with another guy that I trained with. We'd gotten our CDLs together, and we took a job with another company, but he had to take care of some things in his home state before we could go. So I wound up spending 2 weeks cooling my heels, and I visited my dad, who lives, hundreds of miles away. And while I was staying there, they had BBC America, and I was working on a story at the time that I never finished, unfortunately, but it was a steampunk story. I had some ideas about how to make steampunk technology work, like a cell phone that doesn't require electronics, for example. It was an idea, but I never finished the damn thing. But I'm scrolling through channels, and I came to BBC America, and there was David Eccleston, and it was New Who, and I was like, oh, there's more. It's new, and it was freaking magical. And then they just kept getting better for a while, I know some people are a little on the fence about Matt Smith versus David Tennant, but both of them were very good doctors. I don't think there's any question about that. So it was a good time for a while.
yeah. Well, the first of these 3, there have been 2 of them so far. The next one, I think, comes out next Saturday. The first one had the gender crits of the United Kingdom all up in arms because a key element of that first series was a trans teenager played by a trans teenager.
It's good casting.
And yeah, which was absolutely fantastic, absolutely fantastic, and a great story, and one that made you cry. It was just really, really beautiful the way the whole thing worked.
I'll have to see if I can track that one down. Yeah, Purple mentions Tom Baker. My dad actually had a Tom Baker scarf. I realize you can buy them now at Spirit Halloween and probably Spencer's and such, but at the time they were hard to find. And for a long time, I would ask random people if they wanted a Jelly Baby just to see if they got the reference, to know if they were cool, you know? Oh, I was thrilled when they put that in the episode. And Robin reminds me, our friend Kentucky Atheist is running a contest that involves the chance to win a Dave Warnock book. Dave's book, Childish Things. For anybody who isn't aware, Dave has ALS, it's terminal, and he's talking about facing certain death from an atheist perspective. He does a show on the line, Dying Out Loud. He has a nonprofit organization, and he wrote a book called Childish Things. Kentucky Atheist has procured at least one, possibly more, signed copies. So if you want to take a chance at winning, and the proceeds from the book do go to Dave's organization, so that's all very good things. Just go to Kentucky Atheist channel. Make sure you subscribe, of course, but on any video, just type #book, and I'm not sure when the drawing is, but that's how you get entered, is #book. So make sure you do that, or, don't, because I want the book.
And go back and watch tonight's show. It was Dave and Eric of Skeptics and Scoundrels was on tonight. It was a very good show. Very, very good show. And it's not as long and drawn out as many of the shows on the line are, because Dave doesn't have the endurance of Forrest Falcai.
Yes.
and so it's I think tonight's show is about an hour and a half, 2 hours, but one of the best shows on, and deals with real stuff. It's not, it's
Mm-hmm.
these are real issues, and the people that are calling in are speaking to that. This is like matters of some of the more uncomfortable parts of life, and
Yeah.
the sheer grace that Dave displays in answering the callers' questions and explaining where things are at with him. It's one of the best things to watch on YouTube when it comes to these issues, because it ain't no bullshit.
Oh, for sure. Like a lot of the rest of us, one of the things that we frequently get asked personally, if not on the air, is, aren't you terrified of death as an atheist? Because, theists all have some idea of an afterlife or reincarnation or what have you. They have hope. They have a way to, it's not so bad, or they're in a better place, or any of those platitudes. But as an atheist, we don't necessarily have that. So we all get asked about it from time to time, and it is a big hang up for a lot of people who understand that whatever theology they're a part of doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but they can't let go of it, either because of fear of death or fear of hell. There's other reasons. There's lots and lots of other reasons, but those are two of the big ones. But Dave, because he's actually staring down the barrel of that, it's not an abstract concept for him. It's inevitable, and it's coming. Of course, it's inevitable for all of us, but he can see it coming. He has some very sharp but enlightened perspectives on the matter.
Yeah,
and he faces it with a smile.
Yeah, it's I think that I think that I've noticed myself becoming more keenly aware of the shortness of time. Turning 70 made me quite rather keenly aware of the shortness of time, because if you sit there and reflect, it's like, well, there's always this vague awareness of death, but it becomes more actuarially present as you look at time. If you think about your first 16 years. You've got memories, your first 16 years of life. You've got memories of that, and all the transitions, and all of the changes, and all of the possibilities, and all of this. And then I'm sitting here at the age of 70 thinking, the next 16 years.
Yeah.
It'll be another trip. It'll be another trip, another process. And it will be a process of letting go. And it's just a process of deacquisition as opposed to thinking of more. It'd be more of a process of thinking of enough. So that's my project at the moment, thinking about how to process all of that stuff, and meanwhile just go on from day to day, which is tough enough at any age.
For sure. Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons it kind of seems like a blindsiding surprise to many of us, because we get so wrapped up in the day to day. And it's arguably intentional, the way our lives are structured by the choices our society makes, led by the politicians who want to control us, keep us distracted with sports and things, keep us at each other's throats. So we're so stressed that our world contracts down to just, I need to pay my bills, I need to clean up the house, and all these, they're not unimportant things, but we just don't have the bandwidth to see beyond our own little bubble. Some of us manage anyway, but I mean, I have to admit that under the stress I've been under the last several months, it's a lot harder to see beyond my own immediate needs than it is in better times, and I think it's like that with the long term of life. We're so in the day to day, we can't really see that far. It's a rare moment when we stop to reminisce about the past, let alone look ahead to the future beyond a few months or possibly a couple of years. It's kind of trippy. I'm in a weird place with that, though, because I didn't actually think I would live to be this old. When I was in the Navy, something happened that's a whole long story that we're not going to get into today, but I was told I had 20 years, and I'm past that expiration date. So bonus years, I guess. It's a nice way to think of it, I suppose. But yeah,
I mean, there's the old every day's a gift, and it not every day feels like a gift, but
it's hard, I try to think of things like, even bad times, like I'm like, okay, so I've had severe depression, and sometimes I still struggle with it pretty considerably, but I've learned a few tricks, a few switches in my head I can flip to make things less shitty. But any time that I can feel, even when I feel bad, that's still a plus, because I've been in that place where you just can't feel anything, On that happy note, we got a super chat from Left-Handed Jedi. Sends $20. Thank you very, very much. It's a big help. We're still in a weird spot financially. I do appreciate it, and it's another just because. But yeah, thank you. And Doorknob, I actually didn't get to sail. That actually annoyed the hell out of me. The entire reason I joined the Navy was because I loved ships, and I didn't get to do any sailing. I understand they don't actually sail anymore. It's all, nuclear powered submarines and big battleships and whatnot, but still,
You're still in the middle of the goddamn ocean. It doesn't matter. You could be in the middle of an ocean on an aircraft carrier, and it still feels like you're surrounded by, there's an awful lot of nothing all around you.
Yeah. One of these days, I've actually even considered doing a commercial cruise. I understand that they're germ factories, but apparently the food's good and there's lots of entertainment, so there's that. But mainly, I just want to travel on a ship. I want to be out in the middle of the ocean, feel the ocean breezes and see the stars with no fucking city lights interrupting them. And,
It's really pretty.
Yeah.
Really nice. It's really something. And it's also, it's simultaneously terrifying and wondrous. It's quite something, especially on a small boat. Especially on a small boat with 2-3 people. It's like,
Niche says also the Kraken. I could do entertainment. I could attempt to sing and call it a stand-up comedy act because it'll make everybody laugh. Or cry. One of those.
I remember being on watch and getting completely lost. Just got into a reverie and lost my bearings completely. I was like, "There's the compass, I know, but I feel like we're going in crazy directions." We weren't, but what I'd been steering by a star, and the star had moved its position over time, and then I had been concentrated on the star and hadn't looked at the compass in a while. And I looked at the compass and I said, "Shit! This isn't." So it's just, whoa. It's like, my watch partner said, "Hold on, I got this. Okay, we're good now."
It makes me think of two things. The first is that one of my very, very oldest memories, possibly my second oldest memory, was my very first favorite television show. And I couldn't remember what show it was for the longest time. All I had was the theme music in my head. And then as the years passed, eventually even the theme music faded. I just had this vague memory of a show about tall ships. I did find out what it was a couple of years back. Weirdly, it was when Ben Affleck got cast as Batman. They happened to mention in a bio of Ben Affleck that he'd gotten his start acting in a PBS semi-documentary called Voyage of the Mimi, and that just rang all the bells. I'm like, that was it! So my very first favorite show was about a sailing ship. And apparently it was Ben Affleck's first too. It was cool. But the intro music for that thing, it was like, I don't know how to describe it. It was sea shanty-ish, but also it was just an instrumental. I don't know. It really hit me as a small child. I was always fascinated with tall ships. I took a photography job a couple of years ago. They had a tall ship festival over in Buffalo, and even though the pay was absolute crap, I took the job to go photograph all the tall ships coming in because I got to go play with the tall ships. It's just, yeah, it's good times. But the other thing it makes me think of is Jack Finney's time travel novels. Time and Again, Time After Time. I forget which one is which, but the second one, they go back in time onto the Titanic and try to stop the disaster.
Yeah.
But in the process,
I remember that story. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, they finally managed to make some impact. It was I forget, Sai is the main character's name, and there's another time traveler with him. I forget her real name. He calls her the Jada Girl through the whole story. But they finally managed to make a dent. They're like fooling around, pretending to be a couple, whatever. distract the captain, and she runs in and grabs the helm wheel and turns the ship. And they're days away from the date with the iceberg. So even though they correct it immediately, it moves the ship just a little bit off course. So surely, days from now, when they would encounter the iceberg, they'll be out of the way. Well, unfortunately, it turns out that little bitty course correction is what put the Titanic in the path of the iceberg, because time is deterministic, and that's what happened the first time. Whoops.
Yes, you can't disturb the timeline. Can't disturb the timeline.
Yeah.
So
Fascinating story, though.
Yeah. Oh, there was that Star Trek episode where Dr. McCoy is injected with something that makes him go cuckoo, and he goes through a time portal, and all of a sudden everything disappears. No Federation, no Enterprise, no nothing, and Spock and Kirk have to go back to Earth, and they figure out that what happened was he met a woman in Chicago who was actually based on Jane Addams of Hull House, which was a settlement house in Chicago during the Depression, and she cares for McCoy, and she was an anti-war activist, and he saves her from being killed. And as a result of her activism, peace activism, she sort of keeps the U.S. out of World War II, and the Nazis take over, and it ruins the entire timeline and all of this. I mean, it's kind of really weird playing with counterfactual history. And of course, Kirk falls in love with the woman and wants to stop McCoy from saving her life, and Spock holds him back. And no, Jim, you can't do that, because it's like so. It's the tragic ending of All Our Yesterdays. Yeah, that's the one. That's the one, Doorknob Head. It was very good. I think it was two-part. I think it was a two-parter. It was very good. Very, very good.
Okay. My mind is coming up with multiple things all at once, and they're struggling to get out of my mouth. It is interesting how so very many things that deal with alternate pasts and different timelines and strange futures hinge on World War II. Like, I understand it was such a pivotal event in our history, but it's still, I don't know, it seems like they're overrepresented. I guess they're kind of stuck in our collective unconscious or something. The other thing is that classic Star Trek and New Who both being mentioned at the same time reminds me that there's a thing here on YouTube called Star Trek Continues. It's a fan production. It's more episodes of the original series with new cast members, of course, because it's been decades. But they film it in such a way that it looks like the original episodes. It's really freaking cool. And if you're a fan of the original series, you should definitely take a minute to go check that out. So I'll put a link to that. It's just Star Trek Continues. You can find it, but I'll put a link in the thing anyway.
I'm trying to remember the Faulkner quote. The past is never dead. It's not even past. That's what I was trying to remember. And it's, it's true. There's that, you say that, yeah, World War II is kind of a big deal. I mean, the 30s were kind of a big deal. That World War II, you could say, well, World War I and World War II was part of the same general continuum of the terrible violence of the 20th century.
Mm-hmm.
But, May 5th, 1933 was 20 years, 20 and a half years before I was born. So when you're talking about, that's a very short period of time, really. And that was when the Nazis burned the books of the Institute for Sexual Research in Berlin. And the rhyme between that event and the stuff that's happening now with people banning books and stuff, that rhyme is pretty severe. The whole notion, the phrase "America First," that was first used by Lindbergh's group. That was basically a pro-fascist, keep America out of the world, keep America out of European involvements. And and there are real through lines from the politics of the 30s. Father Coughlin. I mean, if you Google Father Coughlin, the evangelical Catholic, right-wing Catholic guy of the day, and compare what he was saying to what our current evangelical folks are telling their congregations. I mean, the man Coughlin he was like the biggest YouTuber of the day. He had an audience, a radio audience of 33 million people tuning in to listen to his broadcasts. Basically saying the same thing. America's on what's godless communism is going to ruin us all, and all of this stuff. And you're hearing the same thing. Those echoes the echoes have moved through time, and 90 years hence are finding resonance within our population, and it's there's a reason that it resonates, because it was such a huge cataclysm. I mean, 12 million people exterminated for essentially racial and bigoted reasons in Central and Eastern Europe. The pogroms conducted by the Nazi state and by Stalin. It just, the incredible capability that we have to being terrible to one another.
And in some ways, it's never really stopped. Like, China did cleansing after cleansing. We don't even have hard data on it because they don't share. And Africa is being constantly awash with wave after wave of genocide, and it doesn't ever seem to end. But on a happier note, dealing with fuck the Nazis, Robin Webster sends $2, thank you much, and says, watch El Dorado, Everything the Nazis Hate on Netflix. I gotta get Netflix back.
Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier. It's like we need a new paradigm, and it doesn't have to exclude all of the. In fact, it'd be faulty of us not to recall all of the, don't burn the Bibles, don't burn the Bhagavad Gita, don't burn all of those things. Read them, remember them, take them as stories, but make up new stories, make up better stories that lead to better ways and means of thought about the kind of future we need to be building going forward. And I think that's definitely a valuable and worthwhile part of an atheist or a lacktheist or of a project. That's why I'm kind of enamored of his Dark Materials, which Philip Pullman's trilogy is just it's a wonderful tale. It doesn't work for pisses a lot of people off, but I don't know how to get bonus. I don't know how to get past the you just want to kill God. It's like, no, I just want to forget that guy. Do better.
Yeah, like it's such a weird thought. Like, according to Christian mythology, God was already killed. Humans killed him. He was martyred. If anything, it strengthens the beliefs. Killing God wouldn't do anything. I mean, he hasn't been heard from in 2,000 years at least, so even if you could kill God, it wouldn't change anything. The cult needs to be dismantled. The idea of we're right and we have to make everyone else right too, even if it kills them. All these various things. It's so fucking stupid because, as we've said before, humans aren't humans' other enemy. We're not. It's dumb to fight each other. There's so much that is a problem that we could be putting our efforts into. And even if we didn't have any problems, we could be putting our efforts into building a better future. We could live in that world of spaceships and teleporters and shit, if that's where we put our resources. But I don't know. It's so exhausting, the sheer amount of effort that goes into people both being stupid and perpetuating other people being stupid.
Well, we can all try to do better.
It's
something
true.
Fun. Do fun stuff,
Yeah. I mean, we all try. It's like the show today. It's taking something that needs doing and trying to make it fun, or at least more fun than it would be if we didn't try. But it does remind me of a thing that Kim Stanley Robinson wrote in one of those Mars books, and possibly elsewhere. You can't just fight against what you hate. You also have to fight for what you love.
Yeah.
Because if all you ever do is tear shit down, then even if you win, you live in a pile of rubble. You have to build better things to take their place. I like to think community counts towards that end.
It'd be a better world if Ben Shapiro could just enjoy prancing around in a dress and laughing about it. rather than having to make it some sort of a statement. It's like, okay, Ben, you want to do a drag flick? Cool. Knock yourself out.
Yeah, I don't know. But on that note, and in the interest of further pissing Ben Shapiro off,
nice.
Yeah, I just want to point out that while I didn't on yesterday's show, it didn't come up until midway through Doc's stream. There was talk of both weight loss and the difference in gendered clothing, and that put me in mind. In late 2019, I designed a piece of clothing for myself, such that I would feel better about gender dysphoria and such. But then 2020 happened. I got really, really sick. I put on a bunch of weight. And when the thing finally arrived, I couldn't fit into it. But because I've been living on crackers for the last 2 months, I've lost a lot of weight. So when the subject of gendered clothing came up, I went and changed in the middle of the show, and I did the rest of Doc's show, and then on Nitty stream wearing the thing, and so I haven't actually shown it on my channel, but I actually got to wear my dress.
That's awesome.
It made me so it made me happier than I thought it would make me. It was so. I've been waiting years to put I could have just gotten another one in a bigger size, but I didn't. I was like, no, I'm gonna lose weight, damn it. You know? So yeah, it was really fucking great. Like unbelievably great. And so yeah, I thought I would just throw that out there because I doubt Ben Shapiro will ever watch this, but fuck Ben Shapiro.
Yeah, that was pretty good. That was pretty cool when you showed up on Nitty's channel and what's his nut stud there? What's the fucking guy? Like
Emmanuel.
Emmanuel, yeah, it's there, and I'm saying, oh wow, here's Ember in a trans dress. This is awesome. This is fucking great. I was like, where's this going now? That was pretty funny. It was very funny.
I was vaguely worried that he'd think that I was trying to troll him because I actually clicked into StreamYard before he joined because I wanted to talk to Nitty about something that Nitty had mentioned. But then he was there and then they talked and then Nitty brought me on and I'm like, well, I'm not changing now.
No, I thought it was great. I was actually quite impressed with I have to say, Emmanuel's come a long way, and maybe his getting slapped around by Jimmy Snow and Dillahunty and Christy and Ben and all of us really has made an impact. So it got to the point where you could actually say now, Emmanuel, won't you just consider that all of us, you tell atheists that we'd be better off being theists, but you do realize we've all thought this through.
I suspect that there's certain people like Emmanuel, frequent callers. Charles is another one. There's a couple other people. I can't think all their names off the top of my head. I feel like the reason they keep calling isn't because they think they're going to convince whoever the host du jour is to become a theist. It's because they understand, somewhere possibly at a subconscious level, that what they believe in doesn't make sense. And they keep trying, hoping somebody will hand them a key to start unlocking their own shackles. But maybe I'm just projecting or speculating or what have you.
Well, I guess it's the nature of a call-in show to provide entertainment, and part of entertainment is controversy. And so, if you look at what drives numbers, it's the simple way is to have chaos, to have a Jerry Springer show thing, which Dillahunty referred to when he was referring to the modern day debates thing. It's like, I just don't have any desire to be part of a Jerry Springer show atmosphere. It's like, I don't care. It's like, I don't want not here to participate in what is ostensibly a debate, but isn't a debate. It's a shouting match between, somebody who's not actually debating the subject, but wants to talk about other things that are controversial and will get clicks and eyeballs on screens and asses in seats, and it's all great. And to a certain degree, that's what the ACA shows, with some exceptions. I think that when Sex was a thing, that show was far less geared towards that. On the line, I think that Dying Out Loud is not focused towards that. It's towards more serious subjects, more serious consideration. But the other shows, for the most part, are basically let's argue. And it's just it's different strokes for different folks. And I think that Nitty Stream, when Emmanuel comes on there, he seemed to be subdued. Maybe he was just stoned. It was late.
It's possible, but I think everybody kind of responds to the energy of the other person they're interacting with, to a degree. I mean, your own nature will play a role too, but I don't know. I'd have to ponder that some more. Possibly run it past some psychologists to do some informal soft science studies on it, because I think Emmanuel comes across as Emmanuel all the time, and apparently he popped in on Godless Granny at one point and was kind of mean, and she's definitely not mean, so I don't know.
Yeah,
there may be flaws with my theory.
Yeah, well, you carry your attitude with you, I guess, to a certain degree. And again, I just Jefferson Spatchcock, again, I mentioned that he covered the controversy around Matt walking out of that debate, and with reviewing Darth Dawkins and some other douchebag, eyeballs, screens, asses, seats. But my whole thing is, I just don't. Your beliefs are your beliefs, and that's cool. But what do you do with them?
Mm-hmm.
What do you intend to do with them? What do you want to? If your motivation is to justify yourself in an ideological mindset that causes you to go out and do harm to other people, in agitating for the use of the state to control other people's behavior that you don't like, that's and I can see it from both sides. I mean, if you're convinced that by my very existence, I am a danger to society and I deserve death, then I guess I need to make the argument that you're wrong.
Yeah. We need to save you from
I'm not campaigning for. I'm not campaigning. This is where I think we're at a disadvantage, because it's so much easier to basically say these people are evil and need to die.
Yeah, dehumanizing.
Rather than these people have mistaken ideas and they need to reevaluate.
Yeah. Well, it's also partly that us versus them thing. Like, it occurred to someone on the less scrupulous side. You always project your worst traits onto your enemy. So they think if we don't say they have to be exterminated or they'll kill us, they'll start saying it first, And so it elevates it to the maximum level of kill or be killed. It's us versus them. Only one can survive. The other side isn't saying that. They're like, can we maybe be allowed to live? Maybe, please.
On a one-on-one basis, well, that may be. I'm willing to fight for my existence on a one-on-one. Somebody comes to my door and somebody launches this actually happened, and this has happened in my life, when somebody mounts a campaign to terrorize me in my own home. I will legitimately fight back or push back and try to act in my own self-defense. But I don't feel the need to generalize it to a level of state action against that person, aside from the fact that no one should threaten someone with physical force for any reason whatsoever. you know,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I make no bones about the
aggressive
fact.
physical force. Is if you want to have a debate, fine. But if you want to start publishing stuff in local newspapers saying this person needs to be driven out of town, that's, you know, and inspiring people to actually take action. That's
and it's scary how easy we
the no-go zone.
fall back into that. Like a lot of people have been mentioning the sundown towns. It came up when I went through Decatur, which, as I was looking up interesting historical facts to do a travels video about it, it came up as like the sundown town, even though it's only in Indiana. I thought that was like further south, further west, etc. Nope. That was the one that the New York Times did an article on that popularized the term sundown town. That's their main claim to fame, as they were featured in a New York Times article about how racist they were at the turn of the last century. It's crazy. But you ask, you know, any of these Matt Walsh types and other transphobes, what do you think that was okay? Do you think that's the dehumanizing people, threatening to unalive them if they are in your general vicinity, even because their very existence is somehow dangerous? Is that okay? And I would hope they'd say absolutely not, but then they turn around and, you know, make big speeches in huge conferences about how trans people need to be eradicated. They say the same things. It's just the groups change. And it's never stopped. They always just change to a different group, you know. One decade it's this flavor of brown people, the next decade it's a different flavor of brown people, a different decade it's the Chinese, it's the Vietnamese, it's you know, the gays, and at the moment it's the trans people, but it's not just us, and I don't think it's ever just one group. They think all the stuff in the past is wrong, but then they turn around and they keep doing the same thing, just to a different group.
Well, it's, you know, there's some reward in coming through that episode, and that where you're still there, and they're not. I mean, winning that battle is good. You know, just not it's those battles aren't the greatest, but on the other hand, some small bits of progress get made. In the particular instance, yes, the cause I was fighting for in that small town, that someone was going against me personally, that battle got won, and the personal stuff went away. It was like, good on you. So I walked away with my pride, and this the person who was being transphobic shit, he went away. I didn't. But the bullshit that he stirred up, you know, didn't go away entirely.
Yeah, that's how it always seems to go. Like even when you win, there's always that legacy, the lasting damage.
Yep. Anyway.
Yeah. Alrighty. Well, I think I'm fixing to just about wrap up, because it's been a long stream and we've covered a lot of good topics. And but I do want to try something weird. I added your version of the stream to my present thing, and I want to see if we can make an infinite regress. So let's see if what happens. Oh, I may not even be caught up on your. No, it says I'm caught up. Okay.
Oh, my.
There's a slight delay.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, look at this. Look at this. Look at this. Oh, my word. Holy smokes. Well, let me just do this then, Ember.
You know what? The timing on the delay is just about perfect. What this needs is a dancing weasel. Oh well. You know, we work with what we got. I'm curious how long that'll go on. I'm not gonna stay all night for it, but
No, I wouldn't think so.
In theory, an infinite regress would be possible, and then we can prove it exists. Yes, Andrew, I'm aware. I actually set the redirect on this stream to take everybody who wants to stick around over to Nitty's, because you never know what's going to happen over in Nitty Land.
One never does. One
Indeed,
never
indeed.
does.
So yeah, it could be interesting. Oh, now, what have I done? No, we've got.
I had to throw Peter's intro thing in there just for the hell of it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Now we've got sailboats and nitty links propagating off into infinity.
This is fucking awesome. How'd you do that, man?
I did the share window of your copy of the stream. Yeah, it's just a share video like with any other video, except it's your copy of the live stream live. And now, since it's going through the StreamYard, it's going out onto your stream and getting picked back up into this stream. And
well, I think on this note, we can certainly fade into oblivion.
yeah, that was more fun than I expected. So I think that's a good way to go. Yeah. Alrighty. So I'll see some of you folks over at Nitty's. Thanks everybody for coming, hanging out with us. Thanks, Steph, for coming on. Robin for jumping in to correct me.
Thanks for having me.
Jake earlier. Yeah, always a good time. And hopefully, I still don't know what the future holds for me career-wise, but hopefully we'll get to do this again soon. Until then, do remember to stay safe, stay compassionate, and don't buy into any bullshit, because you are better than religion.